Welcome back to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Dune Prophecy just came out on Sunday. We're here to talk about the pilot of this series. Now, what do you know about Dune?
I know that the books aren't concerned with having to explain anything. It just kind of drops you in the middle of it, and you have to pick up what you can, kind of like pick up sticks almost if it was in book form. I have a friend that read the Dune books.
How many books do you think there are?
There's like 30 of them, aren't there?
There's 3 original ones from Frank Herbert, and then his son and some other guy started making more.
Right, I know about his son. His son made a lot of them.
And what do you think Dune Prophecy is based off of? Do you think it's based off the original books, or do you think it's based off the spin-offs?
Probably the spin-offs.
Probably the spin-offs.
Because the films, at least, I feel like are based off the original books.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think of the films?
The first film I wasn't a fan of. It was boring. And the second film I really liked.
Yeah, see, I'm kind of with you. I'm going against the grain when talking about the Dune films because I know people did like the 2021 version. I found it long, boring, not that memorable. Literally, it's one of the few movies in the last couple of years that I barely remember anything about.
Keep in mind, we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes.
And watching it, just watching sand fly by while you're just sitting around doing nothing.
When it came to Dune Part 2, though, I'm a little bit different because I personally think it was overly acclaimed. I think it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the final fight scene with Timothée Chalamet, but it's number 49 on the top 250 for IMDb. It was number 8 when it first came out. Number 39 on the top 250 for Letterboxd. Steven Spielberg called it one of the most brilliant science fiction films he had ever seen.
Josh Brolin just threatened to quit acting if Denis Villeneuve doesn't get an Oscar for directing.
See, I didn't think it was as amazing as others did.
I thought it was great. I mean, I'm not afraid to argue that because it had action in it. And that was the thing. The first one was missing. It felt like the story was more cohesive. I remember the first film felt more like a teaser than anything else. It ended with this huge cliffhanger of him just showing up next to Zendaya. And it felt like nothing had really been accomplished except for killing his dad.
It's night and day when compared to the first film. I think that the second film is way better than the first film. I just thought, I guess I just wasn't as much a fan as other people.
I'm definitely not what you'd call a fan. I haven't read the books. I would compare this series to almost every other sci-fi series we've gotten in the last few years. And that is what other articles are comparing it to. Game of Thrones, Star Wars, the Foundation show, Raised by Wolves.
Yes, absolutely. House of the Dragon also.
I mean, you even pick and choose characters or people who've played characters in those other shows. You stick them all on HBO Max. What I didn't realize is that Raised by Wolves a few years ago was supposed to be some return to form for HBO.
Right.
They really wanted it to be a success.
I really liked the pilot for it, if you remember.
You can't find it now. So they took it off the streaming service a few years ago, and it's just not on YouTube. It's on. I read an article where they were basically they torched the thing, and now it is going to appear, I think, in the future on free streaming platforms with commercials. But if you are looking to watch that now, you can't even watch it on Max. You can't watch Westworld on Max either. They're doing something strange with their catalog.
But it's interesting you say that because I think that this film, at least in terms of marketing, I think that this series, at least in terms of marketing, is most like The Penguin. There's a lot of hype for both. Both star Mark Strong playing a powerful / kind of evil father on Max, based on prior and well-known source material.
Do you think that Mark Strong was just in one of the studios and they were like, we're missing, what's his face? Who's the guy who played the original?
John Turturro.
And so they were like, we need someone to play his part. Just grab Mark Strong. He's right next door. Like the franchise. When they were filming in that series, they're filming the franchise and the spin-off series over.
Well, both are based on new franchises though, right? And both are set to have sequels or have had sequels. So it seems
based on old franchises.
So it seems like it really Max is hedging their bets the most on the Penguin, which has worked out for them, I think, and this as well.
Right. They just are missing the fat suit, right? They saved that for the movies where the guy is half sandworm or whatever. But Dune Prophecy, it takes place somewhere in the books, the sequel series. It was originally supposed to be called Dune the Sisterhood because it follows those, what are they called? The people with the cloaks, the women group that is superpower. They're able to tell the truth. They're truth seekers, and they also are capable. One of them is capable of using a god voice from Preacher, where she can make people do things just by ordering them to.
Talking about that, Valia, that's who you're talking about. I enjoyed. That was probably my favorite part of the episode. The first 15 minutes of this thing, where we get the backstory on it.
Okay, so the girl from Wade.
Yes, because we start off. The show looks good. Just
It's not the
Absolutely.
girl from Wade, sorry. I just want to say it's the girl from End of the Fucking World, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just compared those shows a lot. So.
But the first scene that we see is these massive robots and these humans, and they're fighting each other. It reminded me of the beginning scene of Lovecraft Country, Ready Player One.
Terminator.
Also, yeah, the random
Matrix. Yeah.
yeah, reference animated film 9. There's a war scene that looked very much like that when that came out.
The idea of AI and technology coming back and biting us in the butt is so overwhelming. It's almost like it's beyond cliche at this point. It's like that's what's going to happen
Yes.
unless someone writes something else, like even Wandla, right? Wasn't that about technology taking over?
Right, yeah.
It's impossible to ignore at this point, to the point where they've outlawed it in the past. It's our future, but it's the past compared to the original Dune, 10,000 years or so. And so no one's allowed to have that technology anymore.
That was odd placement to explain that it was 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides.
You still have the Atreides name.
Yes.
There's other Atreides characters.
But we get that 15 minutes in. Even with House of the Dragon, the first thing we see is text saying this takes place long before the events of Game of Thrones.
But only like 100 years.
Yeah.
So with Game of Thrones, it made sense in the fact that you could literally trace the dial. In fact, I'm waiting for a character who's still alive in the other series to like be born or something.
Yeah.
But with this one, I can't understand how a surname can exist for 10,000 years cross planets, or how humans haven't developed. Like, I understand the sandworms and some of them turn into like these weird stuff, but like a lot of humans look exactly the same as they do right now on Earth. And that just seems to mystify me. Even
Also,
with Expanse.
Go ahead.
In Expanse, that took place in like 2300. And by then, the Rockbusters, or whatever they're called, the Belters,
yes,
right? They're already facing the consequences of living in space. Their spines aren't forming correctly. A lot of them have like disfigurements. But these guys, they all seem fine.
Well, and also you're talking about like training. Training seems very similar as well. Princess Anise, the first scene we see with her is straight out of the first Dune film, where they're fighting with like the same type of swords. Yeah,
the shields and the swords don't seem to improve, because I think their weakness is if you like slowly use a blade on one of them, like they're not going to be able to block it forever.
Right.
That's how what's his face died.
Jason Momoa. I don't remember his name.
No, not Jason Momoa. The dad, Oscar Isaac's character, the other Atreides. Like he had that dart that just kept on going through until it hit him.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so like the shields you'd think after 10,000 years would have been improved upon to like completely block it out if they've had him for that long, but apparently not.
I like that scene though. So Valia, but going back to her, because the first 15 minutes is all about her. She, a mother superior, the runner of an all-female house, is on her deathbed. She tells Valia that she is the savior from Tehran Arafil, an apocalyptic event that is oncoming. And she has the voice, as you're talking about. She uses it on Dorothea to kill herself before destroying the breeding program, which is, I wasn't really 100% sure what the breeding program was.
I mean, it allows humans to, like, it's their DNA. It's being able to manipulate genetics one way or the other. And they're all about control because they want the truth, first of all, but they also want to make sure that everything stays the same for as long as possible, that there is no anarchy or chaos. Right.
She's needing, so Valia is kind of given the mission to shape the Imperium's future through intrigue and this secret.
Yeah, but by forcing, I guess, the world to deal with this breeding, like by staying in control as long as that happens, she's kind of causing the inevitable fall of all of these places.
Right.
And so that's kind of what they're getting at. Also, when the one lady saw the Mother Superior die and then was immediately like, we should have done this a long time ago, gotten rid of all our control. We're playing God. We should not be playing God. And the other one's like, we should absolutely be playing God because I'm going to be God and my sister's going to keep me rational.
Right.
I really do like the older version of the sister character because I do feel like she is keeping the first one level. And we've seen it in a lot of other shows and movies. When you think about, let's say, Lil Z in City of God, where you had Benny, who was keeping him manageable. In Sweet Tooth, there's the brothers in the second season where there's a crazy one, but he does listen to his younger, stupider brother. And then the What are the other shows? Gilded Age. There's two sisters.
Yes, right.
Same situation. One grumpy one and one that listens to. So I do like that dynamic.
It's
and
kind
I
of
think,
the yin to one's yang.
yeah, and I think that the girl from Counterpart, the sister, did you recognize her? She played J.K. Simmons' wife in Counterpart.
Okay, now that you say it, yeah.
Right, she looks like Olivia Colman. She was actually also in The Crown, which is extra confusing, but she played not the queen, but Camilla, who is the queen now. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I did like how they showed the changeover from young version of them to now they're old and they're still manipulating society.
Right, this is 30 years in the future, and we're going to have Princess Anise, who, again, I liked her intro scene with the swords, even though, again, it doesn't make sense why the swords wouldn't have improved around that time.
Is this the girl who has to marry the 9-year-old?
Who has to marry the 9-year-old, yeah. I wasn't such a fan after the first 15 minutes because I felt like we were getting into another politics show. And what I mean by that is, like, it just felt like we were going to have to, where Foundation was so expanse in the amount of characters that they had and where they were from, it seemed like Dune Prophecy was kind of doing that same thing. We're going to need to keep track of all these houses and who's doing what, because the whole entire reason why Princess Inez is sorry, I'm going to just keep on butchering that name, but the whole entire reason why she's getting married to the 9-year-old is because these two houses need to be joined to have a strong alliance.
A Mark Strong alliance, literally. No, but Mark Strong's character, even during the wedding, sees the 9-year-old break the rules. His wife gets very, very upset. She says, we have to kick these people out. They can't marry the daughter. And he realizes that would destroy everything that they're trying to plan for, which is making the house stronger. And he completely overlooks it and says, this is fine. However, he's already let in the Rasputin into his kingdom at the very beginning. And who is that? Who is that played by?
Travis Fimmel, but you're talking about his character is named Desmond Hart. I was so glad to see him in this because I liked him in Raised by Wolves.
Having seen him in Raised by Wolves, having seen him in Vikings, having seen him earlier this year in Boy Swallows Universe, where he played the uncle, I've seen him play a lot. He plays almost identical in certain ways to his Raised by Wolves character.
Wasn't he supposed to, wasn't he done with acting and then Raised by Wolves was the thing that brought him back?
He was like, TV is no longer, I won't return to TV because TV is TV and it's not the movies. And now he only does projects that are kind of like independent movies like Boy Swallows Universe or these super sci-fi
high budget
stuff
shows
where they're paying him a ton of money, I'm assuming. People love him. They say he's a great actor. He kind of reminds me of like a Sons of Anarchy character who's never been on Sons of Anarchy, right? Like, wouldn't he fit into that show?
No, that's fair. And I think
he would have been a replacement Opie in like season 5, season 6.
He's a good villain. I'm glad that they got him for the role. I think that the way that they ended the episode where he, we can just say he kills Pruitt, that was sad, but I thought that was really effective.
He kills the 9-year-old kid who the wife has just made some connection with. She saved him when he used the technology.
So do you think that we're going to get Mark Strong, who is Emperor Javico Areno? Do you think he's going to have that moment somewhere in the series where he's like, oh wait, Desmond Hart is a bad character? Because he's not as evil as he is in The Penguin, even though he semi-is. Like, there's parts of him that aren't 100%, I guess.
The Emperor? You think the Emperor is evil? He's not. He's nowhere as evil as the Emperors were in Foundation.
That's true, yes.
He seems like a decent dude who just wants to marry his daughter off to a 9-year-old. Like, that's just the way of the times in the future. I think that Femmel's character is not necessarily evil. Like, he's out for a purpose. He believes what he believes, and he clearly has some connection to the sandworms that we've seen. So I'm not exactly sure what his deal is, but he does have a superpower. He's able to burn people alive. And because I guess the one of the sisterhood ladies was connected to the 9-year-old.
Yes, Kasha. That was a strange thing to see at the end of the episode. She dies as well.
That meant that she dies as well at the same exact time, burning from the inside out. And no one knows what's going on. So I don't know. No one seemed to know exactly what that meant. Even online, they were like trying to figure out what book this is based off of.
What was the connection between Pruitt and Kasha? Because we don't even really see those characters connect.
Yeah, but we do know that Kasha wasn't particularly liked by Valya.
Yes.
She wasn't even going to be allowed to go back to the kingdom that she was serving for so long. Do you feel like that all the scenes were, I don't know, necessary?
No, I
think
it's
a very long show.
It's like 75 minutes, including the ending part, and I feel like it would have benefited a lot had they shaved off like maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
Where would those come from?
I think that honestly, after the first 15 minutes, there was so much talk about the wedding. Why were we focusing so much on the wedding? It didn't even seem like it was
I
that
don't think
big
we
a
got the wedding,
deal.
right? Like this was the pre-ceremony to the wedding. She was like, once this is official, then we
Yes,
will. Yeah. So I
but there
think this
was a
is all
lot of
just in preparation of
there
it.
was a lot of Emperor Javico Reno, I feel like, having to talk to different people. He's even talking to, I think, like the father-in-law of the kid. Like, I just felt like that's probably where they could have cut off a lot of time.
Yeah, some people were talking about the nightclub scene, particularly
Yes.
the fact that like she just hooks up with the Atreides dude, who she clearly likes more than her soon-to-be husband, who's been burned alive.
That was a creepy line, by the way, that they have about 20 minutes in with Princess Anise, where she's talking about how she wishes her husband was younger than 9 years old, because she's talking about
Yeah.
how much power
So I
she's
don't
going
think
to
they
have.
actually consecrate the marriage until like they're of age. And so she's saying, until he reaches that age, I get my freedom. I get to do whatever I want. And her freedom includes going to the sisterhood, learning all their tricks, becoming like a superwoman of
Did the
sorts.
Sisterhood remind you at all of the Level 16 movie
Yeah, a little
that I
bit.
watched for
Also,
Surreal
like
Suite?
Stranger Things, where Eleven had to learn her superpowers, and it was half torture, half like real education. But there is such a religious element to it, and that's true from the books, and it's true from the series. The spice thing, that's all there. Like it does feel like these huge courtroom scenes or the auditorium, the Game of Thronesian type, like all that's there. It's a fancy looking show.
But
I'm just
my
not sold on it being different than all the other shows.
And I agree with you, because even though I think it's a cool world that they have set up, I did not feel like this was Dune. Like
Really?
Dune, I
Okay.
feel like it's all sand, and here it just seems like it was
It's not sandy enough for you.
kind of, because I feel like it's almost a little bit worse at its worst. It's like a rip-off Game of Thrones, House of Dragons, even Wheel of Time type of show.
I think we do. Oh, Wheel of Time is one that we haven't even mentioned. Are there as many characters as Wheel of Time though? Because that's also based off like some huge amount of
I
books.
think there's about around the same amount of
Really?
characters.
Because I thought Wheel of Time, the whole deal was that it was like jumping worlds and stuff. We haven't gotten a lot of jumping worlds. It's mostly just been on the dusty planet, and then on the planet that has the nunnery or whatever. The funny thing about some of the articles was it seems like no one wants to stake their claim on what they think of the series so far. It's got a 75%. It seems like IMDb is in the sevens as well, but Metacritic really has like just a ton of responses, kind of mediocre. Like we just don't know yet. Like
That's probably due to the fact that they
they've
want
been tricked so many times.
Yes. How many episodes is this supposed to be?
6,
Because I feel like, especially
and
with
it's had
6,
multiple showrunners.
right? If I feel like after the first episode, we might be through the worst of it. It might almost be
I
like
disagree.
you think that it's
They've
going to
had
get
multiple
worse.
showrunners. Like they had one of them dispatched to go write the second Dune movie. The other one stuck around, but then there was like script or like the disagreements and stuff. This has been an ongoing production for 4 years. The more I watch the franchise, the more I feel like this is what was happening behind it, where people were just making decisions on top of each other, the change in the title, not sure of the direction they wanted to go. And in the end, we get like this kind of middle of the road, like certain storylines are really cool. And then in the end, like I can already see the factors that might lead this to just kind of wallow for a while. And then we're going to have some crazy cliffhanger ending, but not enough to really push us forward.
So do you don't see the show being able to succeed?
No, like there's nothing wrong with the first episode. Really, there's not. So if anybody wants to pop in and they're a Dune fan already, I think they'd probably find a reason. Oh, look, there's the pomegranate with the weird worms. You got the crazy dreams. You got the torture going on. I even have a little game for you because there's crazy stuff that happens in Dune just in general. One of these isn't true, but all this other stuff did happen in Dune.
Okay.
There's a character that convinces a sandworm to let them ride it into space. The emperor once cloned a dead, not this emperor, but an emperor from the series, cloned a dead famous musician to just entertain himself. Like he just looked in the past and was like Beethoven, and he like conjured him up and had him entertain him. Chair dogs exist, which are genetically engineered creatures that mold themselves into the sitter's body for ultimate comfort.
That's insane.
And well, one of these isn't
I know.
true. And then one guy gets so tortured that he unlocks his super speed ability, because that's the thing they do is they like pour spice down your throat, or they do different things to try to get you to unlock your next level.
There's a lot of torture in Dune.
And so like one of those isn't real.
One of them isn't real.
Yeah. I can just go through them real quick. Space worm, cloned musician, genetically engineered chairs or super speed unlocked.
Well, we see Timothée Chalamet's character in Dune 2 riding a worm, so
He does
I
ride a worm.
don't think
But do you
that
think he tilts it up and goes all the way into space?
I don't think that's out of the question. I would say the musician one is the fake one.
The musician one was the first real one that's real. The sandworm going to space. That would be, it would be cool. But,
I was hoping.
but it would be too fast and furious, like. So where does it line up between the films? The first one you said you weren't a fan of, but does the show beat the first film?
I think it does, but again, that's with me not remember. I literally remember so little of that film. I'm going to give this episode overall a 6.5 out of 10 because I know that you said you don't think we are, but I'm hoping we're past the worst of it, and I think that there are things that you can enjoy in it. But it also is disappointing because it's like I felt like this could have been a great show, but just this direction they're taking, it's
What's
overdone.
The direction you keep talking about? You say direction, but what plot elements are you just looking at and saying, is it the marriage part? Is it the fact that they hate technology?
It was mostly the marriage part.
But the marriage is over. So you're saying because it's fixed, it's probably going to get better?
I'm hoping
then why
so.
include it?
Well, yeah, I'm saying Pruitt's death to me. I think that's the thing. The cliffhanger.
Do you think it's going to cause a war? Do you think that like the team, is it going to be like, you killed my son?
Probably.
Okay.
I think that's where it's going to be heading, but I don't know if we're going to get the war this season or not. I'm willing to watch the rest of the series because I don't want to give up on it yet, but I'm just saying if it keeps at this quality, it will be disappointing.
Okay. I mean, they've got a talented cast. And I'm not saying it couldn't be a success. And there's, again, nothing wrong with the first episode. I'm kind of with Ebert on this one because they're the ones who was like, no, it's bad. I'm not sold on anything nowadays, especially after investing so much into Raised by Wolves.
Yeah.
Seeing Flamel's character like do certain things, he goes nuts in that show. So seeing him go nuts here is like less effective. Almost.
But he doesn't have powers in Raised by Wolves.
He has powers. He has lots of powers.
Okay, I never got to that far in the story.
He gets veiny faced and he goes nutbags. What else? So yeah, it's weird that they have Atreides still there after all that time. He's still a sword master. He's having sex with Princess Yanez. We've talked about the sisters a little bit. I think the younger sister is destined to die because that's what tends to happen, is that to unleash the power of the older sister into being super evil, and
she doesn't have that safeguard anymore.
Palpatine herself. The next episode that comes out is called Two Wolves, and by the end of we have Raised by Wolves. And so the last episode's going to be released on December 22nd. People can whip through this thing real quick if they start next month. But thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.